If you saw the video I released yesterday on using repeater fields with JetEngine, and if you didn't, well, there's a link in the description below and in the corner right now, you may have been curious if you could use these in front-end forms. The good news is, yes you can. The even better news is, that is exactly what I'm going to be covering in today's video. Now, while JetEngine based forms may appear complex and overwhelming on first inspection, they are far more straightforward than you may first think. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a more advanced and feature-rich form that includes a mix of the default WordPress post features, along with a collection of custom meta fields with a little sprinkling of repeater fields just to add that extra little level of spice. I'll also show you how to set up the forms to insert custom post type data, send an email to the admin to let them know there's a new post awaiting their approval, and then redirect you to a thank you page. Interested? Cool. Let's take a look at the final results and then start building our own front-end form. As always, let's kick this off by taking a look at what we're going to end up creating. So this is the Submit Your Recipe section. As you can see, a nice simple layout, but we've got a fully featured form inside here that allows us to do a load of really useful things. So we can go through, we've got various different WYSIWYG editors, so we can format the text the way we want, relevant information, and if we scroll right the way down to the bottom, you'll see we have this nutritional information section, and we can click add new, and we can add in a repeater section, and we can add a second one and a third one, so we can keep on adding this information in as much as we needed to for any of these form submissions. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you how you can include all that kind of data into your custom forms using JetEngine. Now, like I said before, this is part of a bigger tutorial where we'll cover a lot more in detail, but I thought this is kind of a really interesting, important point that's really useful if you want to learn how to create more comprehensive forms using JetEngine. So let's briefly take a look at how the form is set up and some of the features inside there, and then we're going to recreate everything. As you can see, there's normal fields inside here, like the recipe title, featured image, content, and so on. We'd also notice that we have this section that allows us to create a repeater. So you can see repeater start, then the content inside there, and then the repeater end. So this is kind of like a wrapper for any content you want to include in your repeaters. If we scroll on down, you can see I've got 3 different actions set up. Once the form is submitted, we'll insert the post, we'll send an email to the admin, and we'll redirect to a page afterwards to say thank you very much and update anybody with information we need. Now, this is a pretty basic example of a more advanced form, and there are so many more things you could do with this. So use your imagination and just really get stuck in once you've seen how to do a lot of this. Okay, so let's take a look now at how we're going to recreate all of this for ourselves. Let's start by adding a new form. So what we're going to do is give this a title, and we'll just say add new recipe. And then we've got some basic information underneath. You can see whenever we create a form inside JetEngine, we're always going to get a post ID and we're going to get a submit button. Then we can add whatever we want inside there. We'll also get an automatic setup for an action, which is just to send an email. But we can override and delete and do all those kinds of things. But we do need to make sure that we've got a post ID and the submit button. Those are the bare minimum we need to create a form. So now what we need to do is start fleshing this out and linking it through to the various different normal WordPress post elements, such as the title, the description, or the content, and the featured image, but also the custom fields that we've got created. So with that in mind, let's just take a quick look at how everything is already set up. So I'm going to come to JetEngine, and we're going to come and take a look at our post types. Let's open our post types up, and inside there you can see we've got one custom post type called recipe. We'll open that. And if we scroll down, you can see we have a range of meta fields. Now, if you're unsure how to do this, I've got videos covering all of this, so you can check those out. Link will be in the description below. But we've got some basic information, preparation time, cooking time, and so on. And these are just text or text area, WYSIWYG fields, and so on. But at the bottom, we've got this nutrition repeater field. Now, I covered this in its own dedicated video yesterday. And again, I will put a link to that in the description so you can see how to use repeaters inside your JetEngine forms. But if we expand this out and I just show you, the repeater is basically like a container for more meta fields grouped together underneath that specific container. In this example, nutrition. We have 3 fields inside here: the type, the value, and the percentage of allowance. So these are, each individual repeater item will contain 3 separate values, and that's basically all you really need to know. With that being said, that's what we've got set up, so now we can start referencing these inside our forms. So we're going to keep this window open, we can flick back and forth, and I can show you just to make sure you understand what's going on, to be honest. Let's start by just adding in the basic normal WordPress fields for the title, the content, and the featured image. So we'll just go to add a new field, and you can see this inserts a new entry right at the bottom of our form. So we need to make sure that we move this before we finish editing above the submit button. The submit button needs to be the last item inside your form. So let's just lift that up from there. What we're going to do is we're going to click this edit button to open it up, and this now allows us to choose what type of field this is going to be. You can see if we expand this, we've got a lot of options inside here. And we'll go through a couple of these as we go through this tutorial, but for now we're going to leave this set as text. Field type, you can see again, we've got more options, so we could, if we wanted to, if we're using emails or URLs, we can use this option to make sure it's formatted correctly so people don't accidentally put the wrong type of information in. So we'll leave that as text because that's all it needs to be. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this, and we're going to call this recipe underscore title. So this is just the name of this field. So we don't need to worry, this isn't going to display anywhere, this is just for our purposes. So what we're going to do underneath is we're going to put in the label, and this is going to be displayed. So we're going to just say recipe name. If you want to put a description in so you can tell people what needs to go into any of these particular areas, you could do that inside here, but we're going to leave that as it is. Required, well, with the title and the recipe, you'd need to put that information in, so we can leave that checked. You've got set input mask, and if we expand this out, we can choose various different input mask types. So things like the default or date and time, and then we can put a format in. So if you're doing something like using a telephone number or something that requires a very specific layout format, for example, like you can see this phone number, then you can set that up inside this input mask. For this example and for this entire tutorial, we don't need it, but it is there should you want to use it. So let's uncheck that. Now, we don't need to worry about default, but you can put a default value inside there if you wanted to, just to make life easy and show people what needs to go in there. And you can set a minimum and a maximum length. Now, we're going to leave all those as they are. We're going to set the field visibility. You can see this says for all logged in users or not logged in users. Well, we want someone to be registered before they can actually be able to access this form. So for a little bit of security, we're going to say only for logged in users. Once we've done that, we're going to hit apply changes, and that now has added that field in there for us. So we're going to repeat that a second time, lift that up as well, edit this. This time we're going to change this from text, and we're going to come down and we're going to say we want to use a WYSIWYG area. And what we're going to do is we're going to just change this, and we're going to type in recipe underscore, and we're just going to put in content. Label, just put in content inside there. And again, your description, your default, all those things are there. The only thing we want to change is to set this again only for logged in users. Hit apply changes, and we're going to do this one more time now for our featured image. So we can say add another field, lift this up, and we can reposition and resize these later on, so don't worry. And we'll take a look at doing that. This time we're going to choose media for the type. We're going to change the name of this to featured. And we're going to change the label to featured image. Okay, again, we're going to leave everything else as it is there, except for we're going to set some parameters to do with how people can upload things. So we're going to say only one file, and we're going to set a maximum of 5 megabytes. And we can also then choose what file types we want to allow. So we're going to choose these options and change this to field visibility only for logged in users. Now, there's one other thing you absolutely need to do, and that's set your user access. So you can see at the moment this is left blank. We're going to change that, and we're going to say we only want to allow any registered user in this example. So guests can't actually do this. You have to be registered. On top of that, we say we've got the option to, if checked, a new attachment will be inserted for the uploaded file. And in there, we've got several options: attachment ID, URL, an array with both the ID and the URL set in it. We're going to set this to attachment ID. So that's all the things we need set up inside here now for our featured image. So we'll apply the changes on there and make sure that everything is now in order. So you can see we've created the recipe title, the content, and the featured image, and these are the default WordPress post type entries that we're going to be using. Now we need to go ahead and start adding in our custom fields. So let's do that next. We'll click on add field. We'll position this where we want, so we'll just drop this underneath the media, and we're going to just edit this one as well. So now we can come in and start configuring everything we need. So let's just jump over into our post types and see what we have to work with. So these are our custom fields: preparation time, cooking time, and so on. So we're going to put these in this same order. So the first one we've got is preparation time. Let's expand that out, and we're going to just grab this name just to make our lives easier, and we're going to copy that to our clipboard. So we're going to come back in now, and this is just going to be a very simple value. So text is perfectly fine. We're going to change this name, and we're just going to call this preparation time. And the label, we're going to do the same thing again. So preparation time. Description, if you want to drop that in, required. I'm going to uncheck that just for the ease, but I would suggest if you're creating a form that you want all this information, then you need to put in the required option inside there. You can drop anything else in. All we're going to do is change this for logged in users only. So we'll apply the changes on there. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm just going to put everything inside here, and then we'll recap on what I've done. But I don't want to bore you by showing you a repetitive process like this. So I'll come back to you when we're ready to take a look at adding in the repeater. Okay, so there's all my field types inserted except for our nutrition repeater. So let me just show you now what I've got. So this is all the information we need. We've got the post ID, which is hidden, the recipe title, the content of the featured image, which are the WordPress features, and then we've got all our custom fields underneath that. Now you can see we can delete anything by clicking the little X in the left hand side. We can edit any of these, we can duplicate them, and we can also set up conditional rules to when to show them. Now this is, like I say, a fairly simple example. But what you can also do is you can resize these. So for example, the preparation time, cooking time, and yield would be much better on one single line. So we can grab this right hand double-headed arrow, we can drag those across, and we'll set that to 1/3. We'll do the same for the next one to 1/3, and the same for the third one to 1/3. And then what we can do is we can just literally drag and drop these into the order that we want, just to make everything look a little bit neater and tidier. Okay, so we've done everything we need inside here. I'm going to save this draft so we just don't lose any information. And now we're ready to put in our repeater. Now a repeater works in a slightly different way. We need to add a opening and closing kind of form element to encompass what we're going to use inside our repeater. So let's do that. Let's say we're going to add a field in. We're going to drag this up underneath the calories per serving, which is our last entry, and we're going to edit this. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this from text, and we're going to come down to say repeatable field group start. Once we do that, we now have some options we can fill out to make sure everything's going to work the way we want it to. Okay, so let's start setting all of this up. First thing we're going to do is give this a name, and we're just going to call this nutrition. Underneath, we're going to give this a label, so we're just going to put in nutritional information. We'll put a description inside here. We'll just say insert nutritional information, one entry at a time, just so people can kind of get an idea of what we're doing. Manage the repeat account, we're going to set that to manually. Add new label, we're going to say add new nutritional value. Required, we're going to uncheck that because people can set this if they want to, they don't need to do it. Calculate repeater row, we're going to leave that set to default. And we're going to specify that this is only for logged in users. So now what we're going to do is we'll apply those changes, and we've created the opener for our repeater. So we need to close that out. So we'll add a new field in, drag that above, and we're just going to edit this one. And we're just going to set this to be the repeater field group end. That's it. That's all we've got to do. So now we've got the start and the end. We need to go ahead now and put in the 3 different custom fields we want to use that are build up part of our repeater. So if you're unsure what I'm talking about, let's just hop back over into our relevant section, and we can take a look underneath our post types. So there's our nutrition. We're going to open that up, and inside there we've got our 3 fields: type, value, and percentage of allowance. So we need to create those 3 fields. Let's do that. Going to come back in, add a new field in, position this between the repeater end and the repeater start. So we've got it in the right place. We're going to set this to be 1/3 like we've done before, and we're going to edit this to make sure everything is set up as we want. So text and text is perfectly fine. We're just going to make sure everything matches up now. So this is just going to be called type, and we're just going to come in there and we're just going to type in type. And then we'll just put in nutrition type and uncheck the required from there. Leave everything else as it is except for the visibility, and we'll just say apply changes. So we're going to repeat that now for the second entry. So we're going to just shrink this down to 1/3 like we've just done before, position that where we want, edit this, and we're just going to change this one over. So again, text is perfectly fine. The field name, just want to match these up just to make sure. So that's value. So we're going to change that to value. The label, nutritional value, uncheck, set it to be only for logged in users, hit apply changes, and 1/3 and final time. So we're going to add that in, we'll shrink it down, position it, edit it, and what we're going to do is make sure that everything is fine. So I'm going to just come over here and open this percentage of allowance. This is set to a number, so we need to make sure we've got the right field type inside there. We're just going to simply grab this name just to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. Come back over, set this to be number. Field name, we're just going to paste in what we just copied, and then we're going to put the label in, and we're just going to put in percentage of allowance. And there we go. Uncheck required, and just consider this to be for only logged in users. Hit apply changes. So now we've created our form. Let's save that draft so we don't lose anything, and that's basically our form setup ready to go. So now we need to go ahead and create the action that allows us to do what we want to do with this form when it's submitted. Now comes the important part, setting up the post submit action. So we don't want to worry about the send email, that's just inserted in there by default. So let's edit that, and we're going to set everything up. So the first thing we're going to do is change this from send email to insert or update post. So we're going to be inserting a new post. Second option is what post type do you want to use. So if you're normally using just WordPress itself, then you could just set this to be post or page. However, we've got a custom post type called recipe, so we're going to choose that from there. Then we can choose the post status. So what happens when you actually submit this post? Does it go into draft, pending review, or so on? Or if it's editing something, do you want to keep the current status when you post or update a particular entry? So it's cool to see that option inside there. We're going to set this to be pending review. So that means when someone submits a form, it's not going to automatically go onto the site. Okay, so then we've got all of the different fields inside our form. You can see everything is in order. All we need to do now is basically marry these up with where they've got to put that data. So the first thing is post ID. We're not editing a post, we're creating a new post. So we're going to leave that as it is. We don't want to set any value inside there. Let's start off with the easy options then. Post ID, leave it as it is, no entry at all. Recipe title, we're going to set this to be post title. Recipe content, we're going to set to post content. Featured, we're going to set to post thumbnail. So that's the normal WordPress entry. So now we just need to marry these next load of options all up with the relevant custom meta fields. So preparation time, we're going to expand that out, and this is a post meta. So we're going to select that option from there. It says, okay, what field is this going to be associated with? Well, if we hop back over to our post type and we take a little look, let's just close this down a second. We can scroll right the way up, and there's our preparation time. So we can expand that. We can copy the name or ID from there. So it's going to copy that. Head back over, and we're just going to paste that inside there. So I'm literally going to go through all of these and just do exactly the same, going over, copying the relevant name or ID into the relevant section. So again, not to bore you, I'll pause the video and we'll come back when all that's done. Okay, so that's all the entries put in. We're just now ready to finish this up by putting the nutrition information in. So what we're going to do here is let's just hop back over into our actual post type and let's take a look at what's going on. So this is our nutrition repeater. So first of all, we've given this a name or an ID of nutrition. So I'm going to copy that from there, head back over to our form, expand this nutrition entry out and just set in post meta, and again, drop the name inside there. So now we need to do the same kind of thing for these next three values. And if we hop back over and just take a look, you can see they're called type, value, and percentage of allowance. So what I've already gone ahead and done is I've actually named these exactly the same just for ease. So what I can do now is I can set all of these to be post meta. Oops, just set that to post meta, sorry. And what we're going to do is we say post meta there as well. And now I can just going to simply highlight those and copy their values in. So just do the same thing for all of these, copy that, paste that inside there, and the same then for the percentage of allowance and paste that inside there. So we need to make sure we hit that apply changes again to confirm that we've added those in, and we can expand that out and we are all good to go. Now, we've got pretty much everything in place except for one more thing. To organize all of our recipes, we've got a custom taxonomy set up. And if we hop over and take a look, there's our recipe type, which is a custom taxonomy that's associated with our recipes. So we need to use that to organize everything inside this form. To do that, we're going to come right the way back up. We're going to add a new field in. So I'm going to say add new, position this where we want, and we're going to just expand this out to edit it like we normally would. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this from text, and we're going to just choose the option for checkboxes. Because we want to allow people to check more than one option, it just makes sense to checkbox is the easiest way to work. So we're going to just change this, and we're going to call this recipe_type. Then the label, we're just going to say exactly the same thing again, recipe type. Description, up to you. Required, leave that set to yes. And then we've got manual input. Well, we don't want that. We want to pull the values from our custom taxonomy. So to do that, we change this to terms. And now we can say, where do we want to grab that from? So you can see taxonomies automatically come up. We can choose that from there, and we can say we want to choose our custom taxonomy, which is recipe type. And you can see value from meta field. Well, we're not going to change anything inside there. We are just going to leave that as it is. So again, form visibility and apply changes. And then we just need to now add that in at the bottom. So you can see recipe types are automatically being added in. We're going to just change this. We're going to just choose the option for post terms. And we can just choose from there recipe type. So that will pre-fill everything out for us. And again, apply changes. And now we can just come back up and we can hit save draft on there. Okay, so we've now set everything up. Yeah, our insert post is inserted. Everything is done for our forms. We're just going to add a couple more notifications now. We're going to send one for an email to notify the admin there's been a new post. And we're also going to redirect, once the post has been submitted, to a thank you page. So let's add a notification. Send email is perfectly fine for this. So we can expand that out, and we can now just go ahead and fill out what we want. So send email is fine, admin email is fine. Reply to, we don't need to worry about that. We're just going to say new recipe submitted for approval. From name, doesn't really matter too much, to be honest. We'll just say website admin. From email address, we'll just fill out a temporary one. There we go. The content type, HTML, is perfectly fine. So now we have, under the content section, we have a load of macros. And if you've ever used JetEngine before, you'll know macros are quite an important part of the whole way you can work. So these allow us to reference the information that's been inserted into this form. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a simple message in and just say, hey, admin, there's a new post awaiting approval. And then we'll just put in those macros. So we'll copy all of those, except for the post ID, which isn't important. We'll copy those from there and we'll just paste them in. So this time we'll just generate an email with this and pull in the data from our form. So again, we'll hit that apply changes option. And one final thing to do, add another notification, change this from send email, set this up to be redirect to a page. And then what we're going to do is we're going to redirect to a specific page. So we're going to say custom URL. And I created a thank you page, just named thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in thank-you. And there's our redirect URL. And you'll see underneath now we've got add query arguments to the redirect URL. And again, you can see all of the data we'll submit via our form. This just allows you to very easily send that data over via the URL, and then on your thank you page or whatever page you want to send them to, you could customize the information that's going to be displayed. So you could say, thank you for your recipe named blah, 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 and whatever you want to kind of do. So you can choose whatever you want on here and send those over. So that's pretty cool. We're not going to worry about it right now, but you can do it should you wish to. Hit apply changes, and we've now created the 3 different actions after our form has been submitted. So providing everything is in place, we can now move on and insert our form into the page we want to let the end user actually fill out the data. So let's hit save draft. And actually, let's just publish this. Let's hit publish. We finish what we want to do on here. And if we need to make any changes, we can come back and edit things should we need to. So let's come into pages and add a new page inside there. So we're going to call this add my recipe. What we're going to do is we'll just publish this page and then we'll edit this with Elementor. Now you don't need to use Elementor. You can, if you want to, use Gutenberg, but for this tutorial we're going to be using Elementor. So let's just get rid of the title at the top and let's just simply add in a new widget. So 1 column, 1 row, give this a little bit of space, and we're just going to come into advanced, and from there we'll just drop in 100 pixels above and below. Okay, so let's go to our widgets. Let's just do a search for form, and we can see there's our form element. We know this is a JetEngine option because of the icon style, so we just drag and drop that onto our page. It says, what form do you want to select? Well, we're just going to type in the form name that we want to find. So we say add new recipe, which is what we've just created. And you can see that now pulls in our form already set up with every bit of information we need. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this, and we're just going to take a look at this on the front end, because it's going to look slightly different, because you can see, even though we set up like ingredients and instructions and so on to be WYSIWYG, it doesn't show in the dashboard of Elementor. So we're going to update this, and we're just going to hop over and take a look, preview the changes. And you can see there's our WYSIWYG entry areas all perfectly fine. If we scroll down where it says add new nutritional type, we can click and you can see there's our 3 entries for nutrition type, value, and percentage of allowance. So now we just need to go ahead, fill out the relevant data and submit this form and see what happens. Okay, so let's test this out. So we're going to give this a name, just call this sample recipe, for example. Doesn't really matter too much. We'll just fill out some filler junk information, choose a file. And I'm going to choose this one of a very nice looking meal. Preparation time, again, we'll just fill these out. Doesn't really matter too much. More case just to show you that everything works the way it should do. So our nutritional value, we can click and add that inside there. So we'll just say this is going to be something like sodium. We'll say 500 milligrams, and we'll just say that's going to be 50% of your daily allowance. If you want to add another one in, you can do that, or you can then click the X to close it down. And we're going to say this is dinner, lunch, and party food, and we'll hit submit. So that now should send us an email and then pass us over, as you can see, to our thank you page, and everything has been set up correctly. So now if we hop over into the dashboard of WordPress, we should see that our new recipe has been added in, waiting for approval. There we go. If we look at our recipes, there's our sample recipe we just created. If we just open this up and take a look, you can see all our information is inside there. Scroll right the way down. There's also our repeater section. On the right hand side, you can see our categories have already been set up and our featured image is inserted inside there. And if we take a look at previewing this, so we'll preview this in a new tab. We can see what this looks like inside our design. So you can see there's our repeater in the top right. There's all the information about our recipe. Looks a little bit blank, obviously, because we only have some basic information inside there. So now if we just jump back over into this, we can see that this is still currently pending. So save as pending, but what we can do is we can just hit publish on there, and that now has been published to our site, all done through our front end form, and we now have a new recipe inside there. So that's how we can use all of these tools together, including those repeater regions inside JetEngine, to create far more comprehensive forms. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to building sites using JetEngine from Crocoblock. And if you want to learn more, well, check out this dedicated playlist next. As always, all of the applicable links are in the description below, and if you've made it this far into the video, well, why not give that thumbs up button a click? It really does help me out. While you're at it, if you like the content, why not also click the subscribe button and slap the bell icon? But if you didn't get value from the video, well, feel free to hit the thumbs down button twice, as that works pretty well too. My name is Paul C, this is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.